Welcome to Digital Breakthroughs Podcast, taking the latest from the digital marketing universe and bringing it down to earth. From SEO to social media, PPC to performance tracking, we hope you're ready for this week's breakthrough. I'm your host, Bernard May, CEO of National Positions based here in Westlake Village, California. This week, our digital breakthrough is all about accessibility. You may remember a couple of years ago, maybe even a couple of decades ago, where restaurants and hotels and other public facilities needed to retrofit their facilities to handle people that were living with disabilities. Well, you may or may not know this, but websites need to be ADA compliant. They have to be America's with Disability Act was passed many years ago, and now there are requirements for websites to be accessible by those people who are living with disabilities. And I'm so excited today to introduce you to Matt Erickson. Matt Erickson is Director of Marketing for True Accessibility, and he is an expert in this area. So welcome, Matt. Great to have you here today.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Matt, we always start out by trying to find out a little bit about our guests, and I'd love to know a little bit about your background and a bit about your interest in marketing.
Yeah, well, we're going back about 12 years now. I actually started, marketing started backwards for me. I started in graphic design originally. So my degree was always focused on business, or it was focused on, I was a fashion major at one time, but it was always, in that creative area, but also the business side of it. So when I decided to finally go back and get my undergrad and get that all together, I focused strictly on marketing and international business. So from there, it kind of gave me a nice melding of the creative side, but also the business side. And when I knew I didn't want to be stuck behind a desk doing just sitting in front of Adobe for the next 20 years, this seemed like a good middle ground where I could flex both muscles. So yeah, and then everything has gone from I've done channel marketing. So I was handling companies like Sony and Acer and things like this, and then to just small businesses, and then up to being where I am now, being a director of marketing. So I'm kind of handling all the spinning plates at one time. So you balance the stress with the creativity and the business, but all in all, that kind of is the in a nutshell version of how I kind of got to where I am right now.
Fantastic. Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about True Accessibility.
Yeah, so True Accessibility is a new venture that I'm now part of, which the whole goal of True Accessibility, which is trueaccessibility.com, is to kind of combat this issue that's been coming up for mostly small and medium businesses over the past 10 years, but really the last 5 years, which is, small and medium-sized businesses are getting, letters from lawyers saying, hey, if you don't have your site accessible to those living with visual impairments or auditory impairments or motor skill impairments, then you're at risk of being, getting a lawsuit levied against you. So a lot of these small and medium businesses don't have the capital to risk, a lawsuit. So they end up having to settle with the lawyer, whoever's bringing the suit, and then also fixing their website at the same time. So there's a lot that goes into it, which I'm sure we'll get into, but that's the basic idea we're trying to help business owners make their websites accessible to everyone, not just those maybe like you or myself who we don't live with any, diagnosed disabilities. But so if someone comes to your website and maybe they have dyslexia, and they can't, read the content the way the rest of us do. So our technology and our tools help make the website really custom to whoever comes to that site. They can change the colors if it fits them, if they have a color blindness and they can't see certain things, and on down the list. So we want to create a simple solution and an affordable solution that pretty much any business owner can take advantage of and set them up so they don't have to, deal with hopefully any kind of predatory lawyers, but also really open their business to people that may not have had access to their business before.
And what does that market look like? I mean, how many people are currently being excluded because they got disabilities?
Right now, because we're focused in the United States right now, we haven't gone international yet, but the stats over the past couple of years, I believe most recent one was around 60 million. There's diagnosed people living in the United States, living with disabilities. It breaks down to around 1 in 4. It's around 26%. So this could be from anyone who's, they're completely blind and they have to use a screen reader for their site, or someone, it could be even like me. I actually have a little bit of dyslexia. So I have to read certain things over and over, and I may not, be able to do that unless I can spread the sentences apart on a page. So it's all ranges, but around 26% of the population of the United States.
So it obviously makes a lot of sense to have your site accessible to people. If it's going to be a quarter of the US population, that's a huge number. We're looking at probably somewhere between 75 million people then, if I've calculated right, maybe 60 to 75 million. On the other side, of course, of these lawsuits, do the small companies need to worry about those kind of lawsuits?
They do, and this is what's kind of creeping up, because this really came into, it was in the news for places like Coca-Cola and for Home Depot and who is it, Harvard and MIT. Like they were the big ones, so they had lawyers coming to them first, and they would run into these situations where there were these mass filers. This is not the majority, but they would have one specific person in a specific state, working with a lawyer and filing hundreds, of lawsuits against, anyone who they would go to a site. Oh, they didn't have a screen reader that could be read. So then they would get these, lawsuits sent to them. Those are the situations which most small and medium businesses can't connect to, because, those settlements could be six figures or in the millions, depending on how big they were. But, a good example of this is I used to live up in Sacramento, California, and I had friends in small business, and this is going back 10 years. And they had bought a friend of mine who had a retail space, standalone building out on Fair Oaks Boulevard. And they bought this building. It's probably been there since the 60s, just a kind of a warehousey kind of building. And they were, was coming out of the gym one day, and they were front news on the paper, because there was a lawyer who came to them and said, the sidewalk right out in front didn't have a designated wheelchair ramp. Again, they didn't build the building, they didn't do the foundation, and they didn't know that they needed to retrofit, to handle this kind of thing. But they ended up having to not only pay, I think, around 10 grand to keep the lawyers at bay, but also then they had to pay for the construction to get all of this done. I mean, that's what a lot of businesses dealt with 10 or 12 years ago. It was the physical spaces they had to deal with. And now, since, I don't want to say it's run its course, obviously now any company, any building has to be accessible to everyone. Now it's moved into the digital space. So since the bigger multi-million-dollar companies have kind of already had their run, of course, Domino's was just in the news, at the end of 2019, they had someone who couldn't order, on their app. They're still dealing with it, but now just from the lawyer standpoint, they're now moving to smaller businesses, e-commerce businesses who may be doing a lot of business online.
So if you're a small business, then what does that mean online? Offline, we know about ramps, you spoke about that, and about handicapped capabilities at hotels and things like that. But what does it mean to a business, large or small, when it comes to accessibility on the web? It seems like something that I would not know where to start.
And that's the thing, is that a lot of small businesses, it's not their small and medium businesses, it's not that they're unwilling, they're just they're unaware, because most of us, the majority of the country, let's say someone like me, if I go to a site, I'm looking at a pair of sunglasses or a new cover for my phone, we don't think about going on and, I'll search to find what I need. Oh, there's the color I want. How do I check out? I don't, the images I see exactly what it is. I don't think about it. And that's how I think a lot of business owners, it's not caring of how they build their sites. They're just unaware of, well, shoot, what if someone came to my site and, they can't use the keys or the mouse the way I do to be able to put in their credit card number, or to be able to ask a question if they have a problem, and use the chat function, things like this, where it's just every day, the same way that a lot of us may not think of a wheelchair ramp. When we walk into a building, we walk up the stairs, we walk in, but there's a huge population that does matter to. So the reason it matters is because, in a way, if we're coming from the again, the possibly getting sued standpoint, people are just unaware that this is a law now. It's, the Section 503 of the ADA. It's not a, you should do this. It's a, you need to do this, or else, you could be in violation of excluding people from your business, which is the other side. Like you were saying a minute ago, 60 million people, you could be shutting off your business to a whole population that could use your services. If someone's at home and their HVAC breaks down, or they need help just like everybody else does. So they have to consider these things, even if they don't live with it every day.
So you mentioned trying to check out or trying to do a particular service on someone's website. What specifically, if I'm a small business owner, what do I need to do on my website? What are the kinds of things that are covered by this ADA compliance?
That's a long list. There's about 9 main areas, but just to kind of give you the high level version, anyone with a visual impairment, even if they're not completely blind, but anyone who's living with a visual disability, anyone who has any motor function issues, and this could also, mean the elderly, who, if anyone has arthritis and maybe they can't click a mouse or navigate, anyone who can't hear what's going on. So if you have a video on your site, and it may be a fantastic video that talks about your company and you have interviews, but if someone can't hear it, that content has to be closed captioned so people can read, know what's going on. And that's just scratching the surface. Okay. And the thing is, it's always changing. So that's one thing that with True Accessibility is that we didn't just want to provide a solution where it can just handle these things right now. We want to be able to have a solution where companies can not only get some kind of protection, quote unquote, for their site to be, accessible to everybody, but also something that was cloud-based. So as there were updates made in the laws and different needs that need to be met, that we could actually update our technology in the cloud, and small and medium businesses can still benefit from those.
So obviously True Accessibility helps companies to solve these issues.
Yeah.
But can I just go back to my web designer for my website as an example at National Positions?
You can. It is something you can do, but one of the problems that we have, we've run into is web developers. Again, it's not that they don't care, just they don't know. So we may say, hey, we need more contrast because that's what someone read. Because I need my images to have contrast. Okay, great. But they don't know how much contrast. They don't know what colors are actually allowed, because certain people, again, if you have contrast, but someone's colorblind and you have those colors in there. So the whole thing is you can, but you might spend more time actually trying to explain what all the regulations are and what your needs are than if you work with a company, like ours, who we have a web dev team who know exactly what all of those, what is included in those 9 areas, and what may be different from an e-commerce site to a lead gen site to a blog site or whatever it's going to be. We can work faster and more efficiently rather than trying to go back and forth for weeks to try to get everything taken care of. And also, your web developer is going to be thinking from a web developer labor standpoint. So you are likely going to end up paying more with all the back and forth than to just work with a company like True Accessibility.
So one of the issues I see for all marketers is that your website doesn't stay the same. It's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. How do you handle something like that?
Cloud-based AI. So that's something that, like I was saying earlier, is it's one thing if this actually goes back to your web dev question, is that if you just said, hey, Mr. Web Developer, I need to have all of these changes made to fit these specifications. Great, that's going to work right now. But what about in 2021, 2022? What if it, something changes? So yes, we do have the 100% remediation part where we can go in and fix all your alt tags and fix all, you're making sure everything can be read by, screen readers and all of that. But we also have a plugin, and that plugin is what's going to be the living, breathing entity on your site. And it's not going to be intrusive. It's something that can be turned on if someone needs it, turned off if someone doesn't. But again, let's say this is a slight example. Let's say more studies were done, and you know what? That contrast, there were some very specific things like, oh, it needs to be 8% this or whatever. We can work in the cloud. We put that, we program that into our plugin, and the site gets the benefit from that without having to go back and forth and do something new. So there's definitely the need to get your site compliant, from a fully like getting the back end in place, but also using something like our tool, the True Accessibility plugin. It allows you to keep your site up to date, and it's not going to affect, any other user.
So thanks for that. And I'm a little worried now. You talked about lawsuits, and you talked about obviously lawyers going after businesses. What kind of, and you talked about 6 figures, which obviously makes me really concerned. So we have a lot of small businesses that listen to this podcast.
Sure.
What are we looking at? What are these attorneys trying to get out of a typical small business?
I don't want to lump every lawyer in the same group, because there's obviously fantastic lawyers out there. But when it comes to small businesses, you're not, I have yet to hear about a compliance letter, is what, companies will get, where they're saying, hey, it would be nice if you did this because it'd be a good thing to do. And that's it. It's just not. There's always hey, our client the screen reader won't work on your site. So to keep this out of a higher court and going on to where you could be a straight up violation for violating a law. And I think for a full on, if you went all the way, it's like $50,000 for the first violation, and it can go up from there after that. But these lawyers are looking for, kind of like I was saying, people who don't know what they don't know. And that's one thing that just listening and knowing that this is something that, can come back to bite you. That's you're 80% above most of the people, because now you're aware of it. So a lot of these lawyers, they're looking to, we will sometimes call them predatory lawyers. They're looking to get a low hanging fruit payoff. And then, but you're still responsible, in the settlement to get your site up to a certain bar. So the fact is, lawyers who do this, just like going back 12 years, who would go along the same block and hit every business who had an old building, who they hadn't retrofit their ramps or their bathrooms with bars for, people who need that. It was kind of easy pickings. So now, since a lot of people don't know, they're kind of running into they're doing the same thing. They're just running through trying to find the small and medium ones who don't know what they don't know, and they're easy to be scared. If you get a letter from a lawyer, just like if any of us messed up on our taxes and we got a lawyer, thing from the IRS, we have a panic. We're going to freak out. They're using the fear factor to try to bilk small and medium businesses for cash that we believe they shouldn't have to just pay out, because it's not fair.
So I don't think you answered that exactly, but
was I tap dancing a little bit?
Well, I think our listeners are interested to know dollars and cents, but the ADA itself, did they have a fine? Do they fine people? Are they going out fining people as well? And what is the fine? What is that fine?
Yeah, well, that was the ADA, just like most laws that are put into place, it's our responsibility as citizens to follow them. So it's not like the ADA is then going, great, we're going to let everyone know what the new regulations are. I'm sure most of us driving, we didn't use our signal, so we're actually breaking a law. Like that, we know. But the ADA is not specifically hiring lawyers to go and do this work. But if it got to the point where if you did get a compliance letter and you just completely ignored it and figured, maybe it is a lawyer who does he's willing to take things to the next level depending on how much revenue your business brings. So if it then got to a higher court and actually you were found, yes, you're in complete violation, you're not trying to fill this in, you're talking $50,000 for the first straight up violation, and I think it's $100,000 for the next one. So if you consider, okay, is it worth that? I would always say no. So that's the risk you're running, if you decide that you're not going to, if you're just going to ignore this kind of thing. So we think it's easier to get ahead of the 8 ball and be able to, even if you had 80% of it taken care of, that's going to be much less likely that a lawyer is going to come to your site and see that, oh, they are doing some kind of accessibility work with this plugin. and they're hovering over images, and the alt tag on the images says, yes, this is a dog with holding a bone. Like, they're not going to, that's going to be too hard for them to try to find something wrong. So they're going to move on to somebody else.
So if someone gets a demand letter or someone hears from a lawyer, what should they do?
Don't panic. That's the first thing. Is you don't want to immediately just jump on a call and say, yes, I'm just going to pay them and I'll just give them whatever they need. So I would highly recommend, we actually have a whole page on this on trueaccessibility.com. It's under a section called being sued. So if you get a compliance letter, it breaks everything down. But the first thing is, don't panic. Second one is research the firm. I mean, a quick Google search, you may find out that, there are many other companies that have been dealing with this. And there have been cases where several businesses together have kind of pooled their collective might and done a collective response back to the lawyer, like, hey, we know what you're doing, and we're going to be taking care of this, but you're not going to take advantage of us. Is that normal? I haven't heard as many instances of that as companies that just get scared and just immediately want to pay off the lawyer and do all that. But the last thing is to research yourself, like what they're saying your site isn't doing, and see if it's even correct, because there's a chance, just for example, let's say in between sending the letter, you heard about this subject and you had a plugin like ours on your site, and by the time it gets to you, they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong. So make sure that there's validity to what's actually being said. And if there is something, if there is something that's actually wrong, then do your research of how you can actually take some steps to fix it before you move to the next step and actually go ahead and contact that lawyer and see how you can resolve the situation.
So Simon Sinek has a great book. It says Start with Why, where he says it's not what you do, but why you do it. So when it comes to true accessibility, what is that why?
To make the web accessible to all.
That's wonderful. Okay,
that's it.
And if our listeners want to learn more or try out true accessibility for themselves, how can they get started?
Yeah, you can go to trueaccessibility.com. And we have two options right off the bat, depending on because we can understand if someone's touching your site, you can be a little worried about who's touching my site, what are they doing? We have a free plugin that people can try. It's one line of code. It's a copy and paste line of code for most of the websites, depending on the complexity of your website. Even that free plugin can resolve up to around 50% of compliance issues.
As a small business owner, if I wanted to find out if I have accessibility issues, because maybe I don't.
Sure.
Is there a tool out there? I know there's so many marketing tools.
Yeah. Well, luckily there is a tool out there you can use, and it's not even a marketing tool. It's called the Wave. We call it the Wave tool, but it's Wave. It's just a Chrome extension. If you're not using Chrome, you should be using Chrome. But yeah, you can download that and put it right in your site, and it'll tell you right off the bat, you have X amount of issues. It'll give you some high level, you have forms that can't be read, or there's images cannot be seen, or there's no alt tags. So it'll give you an idea very, very quickly if you have very few or no issues, or a boatload of issues that you need to attend to. So yeah, just get the Wave tool, just search Wave Chrome extension. You'll find it.
Great. Well, that sounds like a nice, easy solution.
Easy solution.
So one of the things that I ask all our guests are there any marketing resources, blogs, books, videos that you go to on a consistent basis that you'd like to recommend to our audience?
Just marketing in general? Yeah. I bounce around. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So one of the last audiobooks I listened to was called Hit Refresh by, I cannot remember his name, and I should know his name, but it's the CEO of Microsoft, and it's how he's turning Microsoft around. That's a great one. Simon Sinek, you mentioned a moment ago. I've read his Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last. Those are great. And then there are also podcasts. Gary Vee has a podcast, if that's your flavor. He's not everyone's flavor. But yeah, there's really endless podcasts and books out there. My recommendation is find something that's in the niche you're looking for, because if you just do marketing, you're going to find everything. But if you're looking for search engine optimization or Google ads or things like that, I just use Audible and go to town.
So Matt, if there's one thing that you want our audience to take away from this discussion we've had today, what would that be?
It would be that, as scary as this can sound, everything we've talked about, if you approach it from a business standpoint, just a level head, like, hey, my goal is to make my site accessible to these millions of people that have not had access to it before. Go with that angle. It's not just because of the lawsuits. It's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do, and it's the lawful thing to do. So start simple. Use that wave tool that you brought up earlier, and then try our free plugin and see how it can be pretty simple to get the ball rolling.
Our guest is Matt Erickson with True Accessibility. We'll return with Matt in just a moment. National Positions is an award-winning performance-based marketing agency based in Los Angeles, Dallas, and New York. Our creative campaigns have fueled real-world results for our clients across all industries and have even been recognized by the Academy of Interactive and Visual Arts. Our mission is simple: to grow your brand using strategies 100% tailored to your needs and goals. For our listeners to this podcast, we are offering a special 1-hour free audit or consultation with one of our digital marketing experts. Please contact us at 877-866-6699. That's 877-866-6699. Or visit our website at nationalpositions.com. To contact you, how would they best do that?
The best way, the easiest way usually is just email. If you just do contact at True Accessibility, that will come to me. Again, if you go to our site, you'll probably have info at True Accessibility, but just hit our contact page, trueaccessibility.com/contact, and you'll have our number there as well. So you can call us directly, or you can fill out the form right there, let us know how we can help, and we'll get right back to you.
Wonderful. And so for all the listeners to this podcast, True Accessibility is providing us a free plugin. So
Yes.
I would like to recommend that all of you visit trueaccessibility.com and just request the free plugin on the contact page. Is that right?
You can go to the contact page. You can request the free plugin. You can request the pro version 7-day for free. And also we do offer a free risk assessment if you wanted to go 100% compliant, which is what we want everyone to eventually do.
I'd like to thank our guest, Matt Erickson, Director of Marketing for True Accessibility. To get your free True Accessibility plugin, please visit trueaccessibility.com or call 833-291-6373. That's 833-291-6373. I'm Bernard May, CEO of National Positions. Thank you for listening to Digital Breakthroughs. We hope you'll join us again next time.